Good evening, friends. Tonight we will be studying the final chapter in Masechtas Megillah, that is chapter 4. Tonight's lesson is dedicated in loving memory of my dear mother, Rivka Bas Shloimeh. The first Mishna begins with a law about reading the Megillah. Hakirias Megillah, when a person reads the Megillah, he can read it Oymed v'yeshev. He may read the Megillah standing or sitting. Now, this halacha should be qualified as follows. A person, indeed, this is the halacha. A person can read the Megillah sitting. However, when you are in shul and you have a nice crowd there, so it's befitting for the public. In other words, as a sign of respect to the congregation, so it's appropriate for you to stand. However, even in the congregation, if a person happened to read it sitting down, he would still fulfill his obligation. And certainly in a home, if a person's reading for a small crowd in a home, so it's acceptable to read the Megillah sitting. If whether one person read it or two people read it, they have fulfilled their obligation. Now, this is indeed a novel idea, because there's a general rule that two people cannot be heard as one. So when there's two people speaking, you can't really hear one of them distinctly. Now, so the Torah reading, for example, the Torah reading may only be read by one person at a time. You can't have two people reading the Torah reading loudly, because then you're not hearing one person, but rather you're hearing a combination of two people. And in that case,
first and second reader.
And in that case, no, that's not what we're talking about here. And in that case, in the case of Torah reading the Torah in shul, so you can't have two people reading the Torah at one time, because you have to focus your attention on one person. However, when it comes to the Megillah, since Megillah is read only twice a year, and it's a special holiday, so people are excited about it, and so they will focus their concentration onto one individual and be able to hear one. And so, says the Mishnah, even if two people read the Megillah, you can still fulfill your obligation. Now here the Mishnah tells us another ruling. A place where it is the minhag, it is the custom to make a blessing on the Megillah, and indeed this is the custom nowadays, and this is certainly the custom here. You make three brachas before. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu al mikra Megillah, on the reading of the Megillah. And then the next blessing, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam she'asa nisim l'aveiseinu, who performed miracles for our forefathers, B'yamim hahem, both in those days, Bizman hazeh, and in our day now. A third blessing would be Shehachiyanu v'kimanu v'giyanu lazman hazeh, thanking God who has kept us alive, sustained us, and brought us to this time. And then, of course, afterwards, after the Megillah is finished, after you finish reading the Megillah, Aravas Rivenu, Vadanas Tinenu, Vanekimas Nikmosenu, Vanifro Lanu Mitzarenu, Vashalem Guluchol Aivin Avshenu, Baruch atah Hashem, Hanifro Lami Yisrael, Mekol Tzarehem, Kel HaMashiach. Blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King of the universe, who argues our case, judges our case, avenges our vengeance, exacts punishment of our oppressors for us, and pays just deserts to all mortal enemies. Blessed are you, Hashem, who exacts punishment for his people, Israel, from all of their oppressors, the God who redeems. So this is the bracha that we say at the conclusion of reading the Megillah. In any case, says the Mishnah, all of that was in the commentary here, but says the Mishnah, Makim she'nogel levarich, any place that the custom is to make these blessings, yivarich, we make these blessings. V'shalei levarich, and if it's a custom not to make the blessings, then
Not.
Good guess. And you don't make the blessings. Now, mid Mishnah, we take a turn, and we stop talking about the Megillah for a minute. It's an interesting phenomenon that happens from time to time in the Mishnah. Basheni b'chamishi, reading the Torah on Mondays and Thursdays. Uva Shabbos b'mincha, as well as at Shabbos, on Shabbos at mincha time. Kreidin shleisha. So 3 people get aliyahs and 3 people read. Now, back in the days, everybody would read their own. When you called somebody up for an aliyah, they would read their portion. And in fact, among our brethren, the Svardim, often this is still the case, where you get called up, you read your aliyah. In any case, so Keren Shleisha, 3 people are called up and read from the Torah. Ein Peichasin, ein Moisifan Aleim. We don't have less than 3 being called, and we don't add. So on a Monday and a Thursday, even if we have a bar mitzvah going on or something special and we need extra aliyahs, well, guess what? We're out of luck, because the Mishnah tells us only 3 aliyahs, minimum. So not more, not less. And in those 3 instances, which is again the Monday reading, which we do at Shachris, the Thursday reading, which of course we do at Shachris, and the Mincha reading, which we do right after Asher Yuval Etzion. In all of these cases, the Ein Maftirim Banavi, we do not have a Haftorah on those occasions. The person who starts, and when you start and you finish, you make a blessing for each aliyah before, and afterwards you say Hashem Nasalanu Teres Emes v'chaya ilam nata b'seichenu baruch atah Hashem neisin haTorah. So these are the brachas that we have before and after each aliyah. Beis, second Mishnah. Barashi Chadashim. We're moving on the discussion of Torah readings. So we said before, we talked about Monday, Thursday, and Mincha by Shabbos. And what did we say? 3 people are called up in each of those occasions. Barashi Chadashim. However, on Rosh Chodesh, the first of the Jewish new month, and in our days, pretty much every other month, approximately, it's not exact, is we have 2 days of Rosh Chodesh, and we alternate. And again, it's not exact. Sometimes there's 3 sets in a row where you have 2-day Rosh Chodesh. In any case, Rashi Chadashim Chodesh Moed Keren Arba. On Rosh Chodesh and Chol HaMoed, whether it's Pesach or Sukkot, we call up 4 people to read, but literally 4 people read the Mishnah. Keren Arba, 4 people read their aliyahs. Ein Poichasin Mehen ve'ein Moisifan Aleim. And similar to the previous instance, we don't call up less than 4 people, and we don't call up more than 4 people. Ve'ein Maftirim B'Navi, and on those occasions also there is no Haftorah.
There's no Haftorah.
On Rosh Chodesh, there's no Haftorah, unless it's Shabbos.
Don't we see sometimes there's a Haftorah, like on Chol HaMoed?
No.
We don't?
Chol HaMoed, when do we have Haftorah on Chol HaMoed?
Yeah,
Only for Shabbos.
on the fast days you have a haftarah.
On the fast days we have, but
So?
but yeah, on a Chol HaMoed Sukkos or Pesach we do not have Haftorah, unless one of the Chol HaMoed days is Shabbos, and then we're reading Haftorah because it's Shabbos, not because it's Chol HaMoed.
It's not necessarily within a Haftorah, is it?
It's not going to be there because we don't have it.
Oh, okay.
It would be very odd for it to be there if we don't have it, if we don't read it. And similar to the other instances that we mentioned, this is in all cases, whoever gets the aliyah makes a bracha before and after. Zaklol, this is the general rule, says the Mishnah. Kol sheyesh by musaf, any day that there is a musaf reading, the ein a yom tov, and it's not a yom tov. So when is such instances? Rosh Chodesh and Chol HaMoed are the only days that we have musaf, but it's not yom tov. It's more of a regular day. Well, Chol HaMoed is not a regular day, but it's not yom tov. So Keren Arba, whenever you have a musaf and you don't have, and it's not a yom tov, you read, 4 people get aliyahs, or 4 people are called up to the Torah to read. The yom tov, when it's a yom tov, that's not a Shabbat, it's a regular yom tov, so that includes Rosh Hashanah, that includes first day Sukkot, then Shmini Atzeres, Sukkot Torah, Pesach, and Shavuos. In all of those cases, we read 5. We call up 5 people to read. B'Yom HaKippurim, on Yom Kippur, 6. B'Shabbos, Shiva, 7. Plus the mafter. Ein Peichasim Mehem, cannot call up less than these amounts on Yom Tov and Shabbos. Aval Mesifan Aleim, but we may add on. So long as each person has 3 verses in their Aliyah, and this is done, you don't. It's the Chabad custom not to try to not do this, but we do this oftentimes when there's a bar mitzvah and you have lots of people we want to give an Aliyah to. So we'll add on Shabbos, add on more than the typical 7 plus maftir. Umaftir and Manavi, and both on Yom Tif and on Shabbos, we say a haftorah. And just like in all other instances, when you get an Aliyah on Shabbos or Yom Tov, you make brachas before and after. Gimel, ein person as Shema. We do not split or divide up the Shema. Now, I'll explain what that means in a moment. And we do not send somebody before the Amud. This is referring to Chazar Sashatz, the repetition of the Shemona Esrei. And we do not have Birchas Kohanim. We do not bring out the Torah to read. We don't do the Haftorah. And we don't stop during a funeral procession 7 times. This is called Maimad, in order to allow more wailing and eulogies. And we do not have the traditional mourner's blessing that was said in those days, and Tanchumi Avelim, as well as the shuras, the 2 rows, that the aisle of consolation, that's typically done right after a person is buried. So we make an aisle of consolation and we bless the mourners. All of this is done with a minimum of 10 men with a quorum of a minyan. Uberchas chasonim, as well as the blessings for a wedding. So if you have a wedding and you don't have a minyan of people there, so you don't say the Sheva brachas. Vein mezamin b'ashem, and we do not make a mezumin and say Baruch Elokeinu Shachalim Shaloi. Normally, if you have 3 people, you say you could say Rabbi Yisrael Mebel invention Yishem Hashem Mevarech Ma'at Vadel Rishus Monan Rabbanon Rabbi Yisrael Baruch Shachalim Shaloi. In such a case, we're not mentioning God's name, so that we need a minimum of 3 people. However, if we want to say Baruch Elokeinu Shachalim Shaloi, so what are we going to need? We're going to need a minyan. In all of these cases, so again, just to and again, I promise I'm going to tell you what person as Shema is, dividing the Shema is in a moment. But dividing the Shema, having a Chazan repeat the Shemona Esrei, Duchening, Berchas Kohanim, reading of the Torah, Haftorah, stopping before, on the way to a burial place, stopping 7 times, and moving forward, and Birchas Avelim, as well as the Isles of Consolation, and Sheva Brachas at a wedding, and using Hashem's name for benching. All of these are not done unless you have a minyan. So now, what exactly is person as Shema, dividing the Shema? So we do not do this any longer, but it was the minhag yesteryear that if you had 10 people who had davened by themselves in their home, and then they come to shul and they realize, we got a minyan here. Well, we've already davened. So they can't do Chazar Sashatz because they didn't daven together, but they would like to say a Kaddish, they would like to say some blessings together, have a quasi minyan here going on. So what they would do is they would say the Chatzi, say the Chatzi Kaddish, then Yetzer HaMa'aris, the blessing of Yetzer HaMa'aris, the one who formed the luminaries, and then one person would say the Shema, much like we have a Shliach Tzibur doing the Shemona Esrei. Now, this is called dividing the Shema because we don't say the other blessing, we don't say the other blessings, we just divide it, we just say the Yetzer HaMa'aris blessing, and so it's splitting up the Shema. One part we've done at home, all for ourselves, and then the other part we're doing together with a minyan. So this is, again, it's not all that necessary to know these details today, but it's in the Mishna, so we're explaining it here. That's called Person Shema, where we divide the Shema. So there's no point in dividing the Shema if we don't have a minyan, because we already davened at home without the minyan. So there's no point in redoing this if we don't have a minyan in any case. Okay.
What if you davened already though? And then you can shul.
Yes, so the idea of davening, and if a person has davened already, let's say he davened and because he thought he was going to go catch a flight, I'm just giving an example, and so he davened early before the minyan. Then he realizes that he gets a call, the flight is delayed. So what can he do, or what should he do? It's appropriate for him to go to shul and answer the Kaddishes, and answer the Baruch Hu's, and answer the Kedusha, and the Moedim D'Rabbanan. All of these things he can do, even if he's davened at home, and that would also count towards davening with a minyan, because he's counting all of these things. It's not the same exact, but it's certainly worthwhile. And in fact, the Rebbe, for many years, would come to shul to hear the Torah reading and other things but he would daven at his own pace in his office. Dalet, Hakera Batera, a person who reads in the Torah, similarly if he's being read for, which is the same rule. Lo yifchis mishleisha psukim, he cannot read less than 3 verses. Lo yikra lamaturgamon yesim pasuk echad, he cannot read for the maturgamon, for the translator, more than 1 pasuk at a time. So it was the custom in the old days, and there are some Taimoni shuls that still do this.
What kind?
Taimoni, from people from Taimon.
Oh.
And maybe there are others, but I believe, I'm pretty certain that Taimoni do this, where the Torah reader reads a pasuk, and then somebody else reading not from Chumash but from a translation will go ahead and translate the pasuk. Here at Anshe Lamavitch, we give a summary before the Aliyah. There, they're translating each pasuk after, and obviously that takes much longer. So when you're reading in the Torah, you read 1 pasuk, and then you let the Maturgaman, if you're going to do this, you let the Maturgaman read. That's it. 1 pasuk at a time. Uva Navi. But when you're reading the Haftarah, B'shloisha, you can have the Maturgaman, the person translating, you could do 3 and 3. Hayushloshton sholish parshiyos. Now, if each of the 3 verses are 3 different ideas, 3 different paragraphs, 3 different points, so then then you can't lump them together. It's only when it's one topic and one idea that you can lump them together in 3. The Dalgim Banavi, when we're reading in Haftarahs, so oftentimes Haftarahs will be from Haftarahs are constructed from different areas in the Navi. So you'll have a few psukim from here and a few psukim from there, and they merge them together to make a Haftarah. Especially when you have like something going on the next day, or so if you have Machar Chodesh and you have something else going on, or if you have it's Rosh Chodesh and the next day is Machar Chodesh, so then we'll say the first and last psukim of the Machar Chodesh as well. In other words, in any case, the point here is that we can take different parts of the Navi and merge them together in one Haftarah. But we don't do that in a Torah reading. The Torah reading is read straight. At least in an Aliyah, you read one piece together. On fast days, we jump a little bit to go during the fast day readings, but it's very close. And so that's acceptable, and it's also in 2 different Aliyahs. And we're not jumping in the middle of an Aliyah from one place to the next. Ad kama hu medalik. So how far can you jump? Ad kadei shelo yifsek hamaturgaman. You can't skip more than would cause the translator to pause. So, in other words, we don't want to keep the people waiting. So while this person's translating, we can jump over to where we need to go. So in such cases, you need to have bookmarks or have a proper Haftorah book that you have to have a proper Haftorah book that you can read it straight. And so indeed, we have a Haftorah book. It's got it lines it up with all the possibilities so that you can read it straight without pausing.
You said you could do this with the Torah in some cases?
We don't do this with the Torah in any case. The only time we do this is that it was when it's two separate aliyahs and they're in close proximity. So, and when is that? On a fast day, we do that. We don't read in a direct order. We skip a bit. Hamafter banavi, a person who says the Haftorah for Nevi'im. He says, in other words, he does the Haftorah, reads the Haftorah. Who Peres a Shema? He's the one who reads the Shema out loud. He's the Chazan for the Shema. Now, it's not clear exactly what this means or how this is intended to mean, and I'll explain. When is the Shema read? During the morning prayer. When is the Haftorah read? After the Torah reading. So what does exactly this mean? So it can mean one of two things. One, it can mean with the person we know is going to read the Haftorah is going to be the one who when we know who's going to read the Haftorah, so we give them Shema to read earlier. Why would we do this? The person who reads the Haftorah, which aliyah does he get? The last one, the Maftir. Now, while today Maftir has gotten its own level of prominence, but it's actually it's actually the least prominent aliyah. We can even give it to children, young boys. So in order, because it's only the Maftir, so we give them the Haftorah, we give them a package deal, so he doesn't get the short end of the stick. And here, what the Mishna is telling us, we throw in another thing, another consolation prize, and that is he gets to be the Chazan for the Shema. There's another idea that I see here, and that is in those days they would read the Torah before davening, and so perhaps that's what this is referring to. The person who got the last aliyah, the maftir, reads the Haftorah, and as a consolation, and gets to be the chazan for the Shema. Also, so he gets somewhat compensated for his his less than regular aliyah.
Just like Shabbos Musaf.
Yeah, and it's a very good point. That's actually brought down. And that is, oftentimes there's a minhag in many shuls that the person who gets the maftir reads the Haftorah and reads the Musaf. So it becomes more of a choshev aliyah because you get all three of those together. But you don't have to do that, but that is the custom in many shuls. And then he will get to lead the service. And he is the one who leads the Kohanim in Duchening. We have whoever's the Chazan gets to lead the Kohanim. Now, we mentioned before that for Maftir, even a minor can get Maftir. So if the minor is the person who gets the Maftir, so now he can't lead the Musaf service because he's not yet bar mitzvah, right? So who will go? Who will daven Musaf? Either his father or his rebbe will daven Musaf. So again, and that is, by the way, the halacha that a minor can indeed read the Maftir in practice. Kotan kreira batero matargim. A kotan could read the Torah for the congregation. It's not generally done. We don't really do this. But technically speaking, he can read the Torah and translate. This is, by the way, different than the Megillah. In the Megillah, he cannot read the Megillah for somebody who is a minor, a person under the age of bar mitzvah, cannot read the Megillah for somebody over bar mitzvah. However, in the Torah reading, technically speaking, he can read it. Aval Eini Pridis al Shema, he cannot lead the Shema, he can't be the Chazan for this dividing the Shema. Eini Evel Lefnei Atev, he can't be the Chazan for Shemona Esrei. Eini Nesei Eskapov, nor may he alone bless the congregation, unless there's an adult there, a Kohen who's blessing with him. It's a disgrace to a community where you have, this is all we have. I have a child blessing us.
So a child could go up with the Kohen?
A child Kohen can and should go up with his father or other adult Kohanim. But by himself, he cannot go. Pecheach, a person who's in shmatas, he's wearing shmata clothes and it's all ripped up. Peres al Shema Matargim, he can read the Shema, he can do the Shema, he can lead the service for the Shema because he didn't go up to the oven. Not everybody's looking at him. It's not so much attention is being paid to him, and so it's not a disgrace. He's not calling it to the congregation. No one's really necessarily looking at him. Umatargim, and he can also serve as a translator because he's not the main reader. He's just the translator. Well, he cannot be the Torah reader. And he cannot be the shliach tzibur. He cannot daven by moment. And he cannot duchen. He cannot do berachas kohanim. He could lead the Shema because the Shema, leading the Shema is a quasi leadership position. You do it from your place. You don't go up to the Ummah to do it. And again, this was done only in certain circumstances. But so if he has tattered clothing, the point is that it's a disgrace for the community that there's an individual who's going up with tattered clothing. Why? First of all, why isn't there social services that give him proper clothing?
That's the idea, probably?
Yeah, and it's just a disgrace. So we don't allow this. There's a lot of things that we do for the honor of the congregation, and this is not bringing honor to the congregation. You have a person with tattered clothing, with his arms are exposed or his knees are exposed due to the fact that everything is torn. Summa, a blind person, Perdis al Shema Matargim. He can lead the Shema. And he can lead the Shema as the Chazan and say the brachas. Umatargim, and he can be the translator. Obviously, he can't be a Torah reader because he can't read because he's blind. He would have to know this by heart. But a person cannot read the Torah for people by heart. You have to know. You have to read it inside. But he could, if he remembers it by heart, he can be the translator. So the one pasuk, and then he's going to translate. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Kol shalei ra'a ma'iris miyamav, eni peris al shema." Rabbi Yehuda says, a blind person who was always blind, never saw the luminaries in the sky, cannot lead the Shema because we say Yetzer HaMa'iris. We're blessing God, the one who formed the luminaries, and he's never seen him. However, the halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda, and because even a person who's blind and never saw the luminaries still benefits from the luminaries. How so? Because other people have seen the luminaries and other people see the light and they help him out. Rabbi Yossi says that he once saw a blind person walking with a torch by night. And so he asked him, "Why are you walking with a torch? You can't see anything. What's the difference? Why do you have a torch?" He says, "It's not for me to see, it's for everybody else to see." And then they'll point out, "Oh, there's a pit or there's something. Stay away from there." So indirectly, you still benefit from light, even if you're blind. And so therefore, the halacha is even a blind person can make these blessings, and not only make these blessings, but make these blessings on behalf of the congregation. Zayin, kohen sheyesh biyadav mumin, a kohen who has on his hand deformities. His fingers are all webbed and going different directions. Lo yisra eskapov, he cannot raise his hands in Berachas Kohanim. He can't bless the congregation. Rabbi Yehuda Eimer, why? Because people are going to be looking at him and it's going to be a distraction and it's not going to be good. Rabbi Yehuda Eimer, Afmi Shahayu Yodav Tzvuis, Isotis Ufua, a person whose hands are stained with woad or matter. I don't know what woad is or matter, but the point is that his hands are dirty. So in such a person cannot duchen. Kohen has to have his hands washed and clean, ritually, and also cleanliness also has to be clean. Because people are going to look at him, and this is going to be bring dishonor to the congregation. And nowadays, the Kohanim cover themselves, and we have a minute not to look, so that even Kohanim with dirty hands or deformities can still perform.
They used to look at what happened.
Once upon a time, they wouldn't hide from the Kohanim. It's not appropriate. The reason why we don't look at the Kohanim is not so that they can. The reason is not so that they will be able to perform even if they have dirty hands or webbed fingers or disfigured fingers. That's not the reason. The reason is because the Shekhinah is coming through, the blessing from God is coming through their fingers, and it's not appropriate to be looking at their fingers where the blessing is coming from, with God's resting there. It's not appropriate to look at the energy of God, and the energy of God is in the fingers. Ches 8. Mishna 8. We're topic of chazonim, people who lead the service. You have a person, he comes, they say, "Oh, come lead us." He says, "No, I'm wearing colored clothing today, so I don't want to go up." So the next time he comes, even if he's wearing white clothing, you don't allow him to go up. Why? Because it's the way of the people, the Kremrim of Avodah Zarah, to wear only white clothing. Where does it say in the Torah that you're not allowed to wear colored clothing when you daven? It doesn't. So, being that that's the case, being that it doesn't say that, and that's not the law, who has such laws? Idolaters have such laws that you can only pray in white. So we suspect that he has tendencies towards idolatry, and so we will not allow him to lead the congregation even in white clothes. He declined because he's wearing colored clothes. Even if he shows up with white clothes, you don't let him. Person who says, "Lo yaver," "Besandler eini over." If I'm wearing shoes, I'm not going to daven. Af yochif lo yaver. He cannot go daven for the Yom, even if he's barefoot, because barefoot, you're allowed to daven barefoot in places where people go barefoot. But if a person insists that he doesn't want to be wearing his shoes, that's a heretical practice. There is no such law in Judaism, and so therefore, even if he takes off his shoes, you don't allow him to lead the congregation.
It's heretical because it's just like,
because it doesn't come from anywhere. We're making this stuff. You can't just make stuff up.
But that would apply then to anything that you just make up.
It applies to this, because this is the type of thing that other religions do, and we don't do. But again, it's not necessarily an avodah zarah thing, but it's a pasnish, you know. So even if he shows up and he feels like, "Oh, well, now I'm barefoot, so I can," now you can't pray. A person who decides to round his tefillin. He wants to start a new style, and so instead of square tefillin, he rounds them. Sakana. It is a danger for him. Why is it a danger for him? Because there's anti-Semitism throughout history. Now, normally we put on regular tefillin. But what does it say in the Torah? When the nations of the world see the tefillin on you, they will fear you. Right? So putting on tefillin actually creates a fear from the nations of the world to the Jewish people. It diminishes anti-Semitism. However, if you round them, now you're wearing this unusual thing, and mitzvah, and there's no mitzvah here. So there's no mitzvah there to protect you, because round tefillin are pasul, and you've not fulfilled your mitzvah. So you have no mitzvah, and you're just doing things that are unusual. The son al mitzvah al apasya, a person who puts it on his forehead or on the palm of his hand. These are the ways of heresy, the minas. They're talking about the Sadducees, because it says it should be a sign between your eyes. Where's between your eyes? Over here, right? Lower down. But what do we know from Torah Shabbat Peh? We know from tradition that it's not over here, it's up on top. So a person who puts it down in between his eyes, literally, or puts it on his forehead, or he puts the tefillin not on his arm, but on his hand. So in such a case, this is minus. This is the way of the heresies. Tzipon zahav, if a person covers them with gold, unesana al beis unkali shaloi, or he places it on his sleeve. So harei zay derech hachitzainu. So there is a mitzvah.
Covers what with gold.
So the person, when you put on tefillin, so the tefillin is supposed to be for you, an ois. It's not the arm one. It's an ois for you. It's a sign for you. There are people who would put it on top of their sleeve so that everybody else can see it, but it's not on their skin. So although perhaps there is something there, you're not completely not wearing tefillin. Or for example, if you put gold on top of your tefillin, so you weren't supposed to do that, but you still have the leather underneath it. So in such a case, this is the way the outsiders. This is not a Jewish thing. This is not a Jewish practice. So you came up with your own thing. This is like the Sadducees come up with their own interpretations and their own ideas. And so therefore, this is not the way we behave. What do? We wear a simple black box and that's it. So again, you can put your sleeve over it. And that is actually the custom by many people, but you don't put it over your sleeve. A person who has a cast, for example, can wrap the straps over his cast. He has no choice. But otherwise, you put it on your hand. A person who says, Yevarchucha tevim, may good people bless you. Who's he talking to? God. Good people should bless God. Harei zu derech haminus. This is a way of heresy. Because this idea that only good people should bless Hashem, but people who are slightly less than good, slightly less than perfect, should not bless Hashem, this is not the way we believe. Rather, who should bless Hashem? Everybody. There you go. Person who says, Al kan sipur yagir rachmecha, on the bird's nest, may Hashem extend His kindness, His mercy onto the bird's nest. We know we have to send away the mother bird before taking the fledglings. So, such a thing is considered heresy. Because, first of all, God has mercy on all beings, all His creatures. But even more so, we don't fulfill this mitzvah because it's a merciful mitzvah. That's not the mitzvah. The mitzvah we fulfill because
God says so.
Very good.
Thank you. I'm listening.
Yes. Because God says so. That's correct. That's why we do the mitzvahs. May your name be remembered for good things that you've done to us. So in other words, a person here is saying that Hashem should be blessed only for good things that He does to us, or good things that we interpret. No, that's not the way it works. We thank God for everything. Say, Baruch Hashem. Blessed is God, whether it's good or not so good. Baruch Hashem, we bless God. And that's the way it is. Moedim, moedim, a person who says, moedim, moedim. He's a chazan and he likes to repeat words. In Chabad, we try not to repeat any words in the liturgy. Now, if a person says moedim, moedim, I give thanks, I give thanks. So what does it sound like? It sounds like he's giving thanks to two different gods, the two gods. Such a case, we shut him up. Don't say that. You got to cut him off. No, you can't do that. Another case of a person who is silenced is a person who gives symbolic interpretations about aroyes. Aroyes are the forbidden sexual relationships. So we in the Rambam and the daily mitzvah study that we have here, we had many of those recently. And so a person who starts giving homiletic interpretations, the nakedness of your father means embarrassing things about your father. It doesn't literally mean. No, when a person starts giving a drasha on homiletics, we shut him down. Why? Because then somebody may not get the real picture, the intended point. And what is the intended point? Exactly as it's stated. When we say that you can't uncover the nakedness of your father, it means you can't engage in a sexual relationship with your father. That's what it means. It doesn't mean something else. It doesn't mean, it's not a mushal, it's not a parable for something else. It's not a euphemism for something else. This is what it is. a person who gives an explanation, a drash, and when it says you shall not give of your descendants or of your seed to Moilech. Moilech was an avodah zara. So a person says umezarech umezarach lo yisitin la'abro ba'arab musia. Person says, well, it also homiletically means that you shouldn't impregnate a Gentile woman, because it's in Hebrew, mizeracha, your seed, and as opposed to your, it can be somehow translated to mean that if you want to try to make a homiletic interpretation. Says the Mishnah, this isn't the homiletic interpretation. That's not correct. What does it mean when the Torah says you shouldn't give of your children to Molech? What does it mean?
It means they shouldn't marry.
Don't give, no, it means don't give your children to Molech. Don't make other interpretations. A person who makes another, such an interpretation, not only do you shut him down, but you shut him down with a condemnation. You make a macha, you make a protest, and you condemn such a person. Because these are serious prohibitions in the Torah, and once you start giving all sorts of other interpretations, the real interpretation, the real meaning, may get lost. Maaseh Ruvain, the story of Ruvain. What it says, "Vayilech Ruvain vayishkaf es Bila Pelegesh Aviv," and Ruvain went and lied with the concubine Bila, with Bila, the concubine of his father. So. Nikra v'lei mitargim. You read this in the Torah, but you don't translate it because that actually didn't happen. According to the tradition, it's not actually what happened. He moved his father's couch from Bilhah's tent into his mother Leah's tent, and so this is considered that as the Torah elevates this wrongdoing as if he had lied with her. But that's not actually what happened, and we don't want you to think that actually happened. Maaseh Tamar, the story of Yehuda and Tamar, Nikro Mitargim. You read it and you actually translate it because the way it says it in the Torah is the way it happened. Maaseh Egel Arishin, Nikro Mitargim. The story of the Egel Hazahav, as it's recorded the first time in Shemos, Nikro Mitargim is read and it is translated. Hasheni Nikro V'lei Mitargim, the second time, it's read but not translated. It says why? Because it says later on, and this Egel went out. This is when Aaron is giving over his story of this version, and one may think that this was actually some sort of God that came out. And so therefore, this needs qualification. We don't read it exactly the way it is written. So we read it, but we don't translate it, lest somebody not know the full explanation of what went on there. Birchas Kohanim, Maaseh David v'Amnon, Lo Nikram v'lo Mitargim. Birchas Kohanim is not read by itself in the Torah, actually, unless it's part of a larger parsha. Maaseh David v'Amnon, I believe that's for Ayin Hara, that story of David and Amnon. Lo Nikram v'lo Mitargim. We don't put these as part of Haftorah, and that's in deference to David HaMelech, and that's actually not the Ein Maftir by Merkava. We don't have a Maftir that records the story of the Haftorah. Rabbi Yehuda Matir, and that's actually the halacha. We have it on Shavuos. We recite this Haftorah about the Merkava. Rabbi Eliezer says Ein Maftirim B'Hidas Yerushalayim, and we do not read make known to Yerushalayim. This talks about the degradation of Yerushalayim, and so it's not appropriate to read it, and the halacha does not follow that. Slika Meseches Megillah. You have now finished studying Megillah. Mazel Tov. Mazel Tov. Please join us again next week on Wednesday at 8:30, and we will begin a new Masechta tractate Moed Katan. Have a very good evening.